That wasn't pretty. Indiana Fever got their ass kicked by the Golden State Valkyries. That's about as simple as it goes. They got an ass whooping. Their coach will be questioned more so than ever before, I would say, today after a game like that. Folks are going to question Stephanie White because the Fever get ran off the floor by the Golden State Valkyries. She decides to start Ari McDonald at point guard. Ari and Clark hadn't played with each other before. The Fever couldn't hit anything from the floor. They couldn't secure a second chance opportunity. Clark didn't really even get that many shots off. The Valkyries out-efforted them, out-hustled them. There wasn't Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston pick and rolls. So the question is, how much do you flush a loss down the toilet like that? Or how much is that indicative of the season the Fever have had? Now, part of it's the inconsistencies because Caitlin Clark has been in and out of the lineup, but certainly an inconsistent effort for Indiana against Golden State. So when you do look at that, right, like you look at the game, and one thing that stands out to you, and here's the thing. Actually, before I get to the broad takeaways, let me make sure I'm clear. Like, I feel like sometimes when you want to crash out the most is when to show a little bit more patience, right? Like, because it's easy. It's an afternoon that people were excited. Caitlin Clark is back. They get smacked around. The sky is falling. It's all over, whatever. But, then I see the Hatelens also rejoicing and pumping their fists and waving their pom-poms and all that stuff. And, you go, okay, all right, maybe not jump off too much, because the fact that the Hatelens are so giddy about it lets me know that perhaps patience is needed. It reminds me of LeBron James. It really does. It reminds me of the reactions that happened around like the Miami Heat and LeBron's time in Cleveland and all that stuff, like extra crazy reactions, extra scrutiny after everything. Now, with that said, that was a brutal performance by the Fever. No question. Clark, I didn't think was that bad. She played pretty well defensively in her return to the floor. She didn't get that many shots up, 12 shots, only 4 of 12 from the floor. She struggled, but when you're coming off of quad injury and then a groin injury, and then you're in and out in short bursts like she was, there's a little bit of a grace associated there, I would say. Same goes for the team as a whole when you have so much in and out of the lineup kind of deal. But a couple things were glaring. One is how poorly the Fever shot from the floor, just 31% from the floor. How poorly they shot from three, 22% from three, because that you're not going to win games like that. You're not going to win games like that. And, that is just, you can't shoot that unless you're playing overwhelmingly awesome defense. You cannot shoot like that and expect to win games. So that's part of it, like the broadside of a barn argument, right? Sophie Cunningham has not been particularly good for the Fever really all year. When Lexi Hull, who came off the bench in this one, that was an interesting wrinkle by Stephanie White to start the game, is 2 of 7, 1 of 4. That's another interesting thing. Stretch on the word interesting. Ari McDonald starts, but is only 2 of 9, 1 of 7 from 3. She gets 7 threes up, only hits 1. Minus 20. Kelsey Mitchell, I thought, was particularly poor in this game, especially due to her standards. I mean, it's going to be tough when Kelsey's playing that bad. She just had one of those games, 3 of 13. A lot of long 2 attempts. Aaliyah Boston, minus 25. 2 of 8 from the floor, only 8 shot attempts. The lack of two-person action between Boston and Clark was pretty evident in this one. All right, what was going on there? That was, interesting. But this is still a team that has shown what it's capable of. 9 and 10, like you get to the point in the season, right? You get to a point in the season where you say to yourself, all right, how many more losses can be afforded on the overall ledger, on the overall resume, before those losses come back to get you in the end? Because there's only so many that you can just accumulate and when your final record is what your final record is, there it is. But like was said on the broadcast by Pat Boylan, that they are third in the entire league in net rating. So, and they did beat the Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup. And Caitlin Clark just got back. So there is, this has been a team that's played up and down to its competition this year, which is another thing to point out. I mean, they've beaten the Liberty. They've beaten the Lynx. They've got to win over the Dream, who they play next. But they've lost to the Sparks. And they get smacked by the Valkyries. And the Valkyries just bring a consistent effort and energy. And they get to those second. There was a sequence in that game where it was 55-50 when the Fever were down 5. They cut it to 5, and they couldn't get a loose ball. And that's when it started to get away. And then Clark sat down, because Clark was coming in and out of the lineup. She sat down. So that was, another thing that hurt them. I think that she was in and out. Also, they didn't seem to know their playing style exactly. Were they trying to get her free off the ball? Were they trying to put her all on the ball and let her cook? A little bit of inconsistency in that sense as well. Now, one thing that's also inconsistent is the official. I point this out, and everybody, I'm not making excuses. This is a long-term issue. Like, Caitlin Clark is allowed to be grabbed and pushed and shoved on the perimeter, and teams should do that, by the way. If the refs are going to let them do that, they should do that. No question. But generally, I'm used to, when watching basketball, seeing that called as a whistle. And then that gets the perimeter defenders into foul trouble. It gets the other team into the penalty. It makes them back up off of Clark. The Valkyries were trapping her up at half court. So that's basically what I saw from that game. The question is, is it a panic, like the flares in the streets asking for help sort of situation? Or is it, hey, you got your star player back. She, and the rest of the team struggled, couldn't shoot the rock. Because that also factors in. Could not hit anything. And that changes things, right? Because you make the shot, obviously it shows up on the scoreboard, but not to mention beyond that, the other team can't get the ball and push it down your throat off the rebounds. But there's certainly some questions. And look, the front office has questions too, because this is a team that lacks athleticism and size on the wing. And some of the offseason signings haven't exactly panned out. Notably, DeWanna Bonner, who's, of course, not on the team anymore. And obviously, Natasha Howard has not been great. Ari McDonald was a good pickup by necessity. But then all of a sudden, she's starting. And I don't even mind that you want to get a look at stuff. If you're Stephanie White, fine, I get it, I guess. But what happened to AB, CC, and Kelsey? That's been the formula, particularly in this one. Didn't feel like there was much CC and AB. Pick and roll, getting easy shots for Aaliyah. That kind of deal. So, yeah, that was that was the roughest watch, I would say, of the entire season. The most frustrating loss for the Fever to me was the Aces game, because they had that game and Clark had the turnovers that I think directly led to the loss. I would have put, that loss on Clark more than anybody else because of the timing of her turnovers. And I thought that was a game they should have won. So just from a result standpoint, I think that was the most frustrating loss. But from a performance standpoint, this was the most frustrating loss for the Fever. This was the most thoroughly they've gotten their tails kicked all season long. Now, you can also factor in the time. I know everybody always likes to go excuses, but these things do happen to factor into things, human beings. An earlier game, again, trying to integrate Clark in. There's still a lot of games left to be played. So the mood, I guess you could say, like, the mood can't go from Commissioner's Cup champs to the sky is falling, fire the coach within a week. That's a little schizophrenic, right? So you can have bona fide criticisms, bona fide concerns, season-long inconsistencies to point out, in-game inconsistencies to point out, but at the same time, I don't know if it's quite healthy to ping pong from one end of the spectrum to the other by every single game. Now, the WNBA season is not a super long season, but it is still a 44-game season. And the Fever have now played 19 games, meaning they have more than half the season remaining in front of them. In that 19 games, Caitlin Clark has missed half of them. So their best player has been out for half the season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams make the playoffs in the WNBA. The Fever are still a playoff team. Their overall metrics still look good. They've got a few more games before All-Star. They've got one of the most insane stretches of schedules I've ever seen. It is wild because they got to go from this homestand here. They played Atlanta and Dallas Friday and Sunday. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to send the Fever on the road for a back-to-back on the East Coast next week before the All-Star game? That is an odd scheduling decision. Let's just put it that way. I don't really understand the motive behind a scheduling decision like that. When the All-Star is so contingent on the Fever. Yeah, so those are about all my takeaways from the situation. Let me get to the comment section, see if there's anything I missed. I don't have a ton of time today. Super chats, member chats, go first. Crank that 22. The more KK gets comfortable, the better she looks. Michaela Timpson, a bit of a bright spot. I would say she's really got to learn to pass the ball out. There were several times that she had the ball and forced the shot up in a situation where the ball should have been swung back to the perimeter. So if I have a criticism of her after that game, it's that. Caitlin Clark did have some good words for her after the game. Talking about when her number's been called, she's produced. I mean, again, it's Clark draws extra attention, which draws extra scrutiny, which draws extra reactions. I mean, this is a team that just lost to the Sparks also. This is a team that has lost to the Connecticut Sun on the season. It's also a team that's beaten the Liberty and beaten the Dream. And generally, I would apply a certain level of grace when you are trying to integrate your pieces back into the lineup. But especially a big piece like that, and you've had players in and out. With that said, it's one of those ones where the effort makes you scratch your head a bit. Some of the strategic decisions make you scratch your head a bit. And you do wonder, all right, Stephanie White, what are you changing going forward out of that? And the Valkyries are the wrong team. They're the wrong team to catch when you don't have pep in your step. They're the wrong team to catch when that because they play hard the whole time. They go and go and go. They go and go and go. And they're going to out effort you if you don't bring your best. But, ultimately, when you shoot 6 of 27 from 3 and 21 of 68 from the floor, it's going to be a bad time. I mean, let's just say you hit 10 of 27 from 3, right? That's 12 more points, which makes it a 7-point game. And let's just say you hit another, 3 shots from the field, you're right there. And that's still not a great shooting night. It's tough. It always makes it look worse when you're not hitting shots. Every result looks worse when you're not hitting shots. I see a lot of people saying the Valkyries are a better team than the Fever. They certainly played harder. There's not really any other metric that says the Valkyries are a better team than the Fever, though. Let me look at the net rating for teams this year. The Fever are currently the 5th-ranked offense in the WNBA after 19 games. They are the 5th-ranked defense in the WNBA after 19 games. The Valkyries are the 2nd-ranked defense. Valkyries are the 10th-ranked offense. Net rating, Fever fell to 5 after today. So they did drop to 5. The Valkyries are at 7. Fever's net rating is 5.0. Valkyries is 2.3. It's Lynx, Liberty, Dream, Mercury, Fever in that order. Member chats, super chats go first. As always, just a quick live here today, guys. Kevin Zwicker says panic. I think, like the noon start makes it worse. Something about that noon start makes it worse. That is not the kind of thing that you feel good about. Kind of wake up, get ready to go, starting your day, and then smacked across the face. That's what happened here. I mean, there's no question. That was a rough performance by the Fever. I mean, there's no saying otherwise. No saying otherwise. Brett Atwood says so many missed shots. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just does come down to that too. Sometimes it does just come down to that. Stephanie White speaking now. Always going to be adjustment when you're working people back into the lineup. Competitiveness, tension, lack of detail, not acceptable. She likes the ability to have 2 primary ball handlers on the floor. That they'll continue to work on that. Red Tangent. Robin, 2 days ago, the Fever are the best team in the league. I like you. So if I'm going to bust your chops, I'll pay for it. You're fair enough. Look, I still think the Fever have that potential. I don't change my mind off of that performance. I've been bullish on the Fever all season, right? Like even in the midst of some of the crash outs, even in the midst of some of the worst performances. So I'm not going to sit here and change wildly on a one result when there was a working in like it's fresh, it's recent, so it feels like, and it was the worst. It sucked to watch. The Fever sucked out loud in that game. Got their ass kicked in every which way. But that doesn't throw everything in the trash from before. Let's see how they do Friday, Sunday, heading into All-Star. Because they could rip off 3 wins in a row, and then all of a sudden everybody changes their tune too. Because are there legitimate reasons for them to have struggled in this game? Yes, there are. Was the level of performance acceptable? I think, like I just read from Stephanie White, no. The performance level was not acceptable. Both things can be true. Dominique says, how do you feel the minutes Clark was getting in strategy? Keep her on the bench at the end of the third and start of the fourth. She can't play the whole game. She's coming off injury. I mean, that hurt them. When Clark sat, it hurt them. There's no question. There is no question. But at the same time, she is coming off of a groin injury after coming off of a quad injury. So you can't just then throw her onto the court. I feel like sometimes people think Caitlin is a robot. Like she can play every minute of every game with the ball in her hands, every possession of every game. And that's going to wear her down. And in this case, I understood it. Did it hurt the Fever? Absolutely. So from like a strategy standpoint, if you were trying to win this game as much as possible, I did not, think it worked. But I also think she had to sit at that point. They don't want to come out and say it directly, but she was on a bit of a minutes restriction, right? Like they didn't want her coming off of that extended period of time and then out on the floor for so much of the game. These things, they do matter. And she is a human being. So I thought that was just part of the nature of the beast. Tulip points out the sun beat the storm. Some of these early start games are odd for people's clocks and things like that too. Like they do have an impact. And Golden State is not the team to, like if one team is going to bring their A effort every game, it's been Golden State, who give the Fever some problems matchup-wise because of how physical they are and how spread out they are in that physicality, and that they got a great coach who seems to have a good read on Caitlin Clark's tendencies also. Natalie Nakase has been pretty upfront. And, been out there and talking about how she defends Caitlin Clark. Caitlin did not lose her starting point guard position and role. She was, like that. You cannot read into that just because of Ari was playing. Yes, Clark brought the ball up plenty in the game too. Plenty of stretch. I think Stephanie White was trying things. She basically tried a 3-guard lineup is what she tried. Where you hear her positionless basketball nowadays, where not everybody is in the defined position. So those are things to consider. It's going to take more than a game, too, to do something like that. Basil says, dude, this was not an A effort. They were not that good either. 16 turnovers, 37% shooting. Stop the spin. The Valkyries have not shot well all year. They don't shoot good. They shoot a lot. They don't shoot good. They've put up a ton of threes. That's one of their mentality. But part of that was, so effort is when you get the rebounds, right? 47 rebounds to 36 rebounds. They out-efforted the Fever. They out-efforted them. So that's the way the cookie crumbled in this one. That's the way the cookie crumbled. The coach going to get criticized. Patience going to, run a little thin. But it is what it is. Jonathan says, bye, Robin. I knew I could count on you. See you. What did you count on me for what? Nan P. Robin might as well get a Fever shirt with Trust the Process on it. I mean, what do y'all want? I just told you they sucked out loud. And there are reasonable things to question. I mean, you want to call them excuses or you can call it analysis. Y'all want to crush the Fever, you can crush the Fever. I said it was pathetic game, pathetic performance. But, the difference is whether or not you apply it to the entire thing. But is today's game an indictment on the all season? What the season might be, what the season was, what how the play was against the Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup, how they did play against the Aces, how they did play against the Liberty, that erases all of it? It's a continuation for sure in what has been the definition of an up and down season, which is extraordinarily frustrating. It's frustrating when a team is that up and down. But at the same time, am I not allowed to see how they play in the next game against the Dream? And then on Sunday, let's say they win those two games. Is this now still the end of all life on Earth? Because they did have to adjust to get, Caitlin Clark did just come back. They were adjusting to getting Caitlin Clark back. That's not an excuse. That's the freaking truth. Did the coach make the right move? Certainly didn't look like it in this game, right? But you have new players playing together for the first time. She is trying different things out. Are you better at things when you first start doing them or later on? Yeah, the Liberty were down 2 starters. The Fever have been down Clark in some of these games. The Liberty have been down 2 starters a bunch of this season. They've been down Jonquel Jones recently too. What about the Lynx? And that was without Clark. See, Basil, this is what I would push against. Losing the game is one thing. Losing this way is the issue. You'd rather lose this way. As far as takeaways go, when you can just go, they look like garbage versus, this is this season long, a continuation of the season long problem. I'm not saying it's sunshine and rainbows, y'all. But I'm also not saying fire the coach after one game when everybody was on a high just recently. Can we reach an accord there? Can that be a deal? Caitlin Clark ain't Superwoman. She's human. She was on the shelf for a long time. That's going to take some adjusting. That's going to take some adjusting. One thing I would make a point of if I'm Stephanie White, though, is the holding and grabbing and all that stuff on the perimeter. And then sometimes the lack of getting the ball back to Caitlin Clark after she gives it up. Bobby Yu says it's not just this loss. The Fever now 5-5 with Caitlin Clark playing. The problems. Look, again, as I say, with the record, eventually the record does come back to bite you, right? Eventually the record does come back to bite you. But at the same time, records could be deceiving in a small sample size because that 5-5 record includes a 1-point loss to the Dream and a 2-point loss to the Liberty. A lot of people think the end of that Liberty game was officiated incorrectly. And let's say Natasha Howard makes a mid-range jumper. All of a sudden, those two games flip, and it's not 5-5, it's 7-3. Now, Caitlin Clark, to be honest, the biggest concern I would have is the injuries just wearing on Caitlin Clark over the course of the season and affecting her performance throughout the season. That would be the biggest concern. All right, I got another minute or two, guys. Get the likes and subscribes in. Any member chats, super chats, get them in. My kids just walked back in the house. Sounds like there's a bunch of kids here. There's definitely a bunch of kids here. So I'll probably do another video on this real quick to get that up. But I can't, I won't be able to stay live. All right, y'all. That'll do it for me. There is a bunch of kids here. So let me wrap this one up. Check out the video later. Like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We'll see what was said after that. The Fever will reconvene. I'll get you another live stream probably at the regular time tomorrow. Until then, yeet.